Okay, good afternoon, folks. This is Srinivas here, the moderator for your next session on the aligning finance and procurement. So while we were preparing for the session, the first thing which struck me was there is a hidden message in it. Actually, it's not aligning finance and procurement. The core goal is savings and bringing some value in the whole process. That's what the hidden message we saw. So I'm going to hit the bullseye, and we will try to be as specific as possible without much gyan. We'll share our practical experiences. And that's what I thought will bring value to this session also. And a few caveats and challenges I'd like to present upfront. We have participants, I think, from diverse industries and diverse roles also, a couple of them. So we may not be able to bring specific industry nuances and address specific issues. So we will, what is universally applicable is what we'll deliberate. Number two is we will also look at there is inherent challenges in the whole process of procurement. Like we have to meet diverse stakeholders' expectations. There's constant changing. We are adapting to the macro and micro economy always, every industry. And there is dynamic regulatory changes. So procurement function is put force up force to align to those. So from an idea perspective or a knowledge perspective, what we are giving is an indication. You have to tailor make to your industry and take it forward. So that's what I will put the caveat. And I'll also feel free to text your questions in case we don't cover some of the questions. So without wasting much time, I'll start with the first question to Ashok. Okay, Ashok, let's start defining what is this collaboration for finance with finance and how it can drive success.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ashok Bhatt, and I look after the procurement of Pullman and Novotel Ibis hotels at Aerocity, New Delhi, which is a part of the Accor Group in India. So when it comes to the procurement and the finance, see the procurement, whenever you think of procuring something, but there has to be a budget for everything. So then when it comes to the budgeting, it is always the finance who does that. So that means when budgeting is done by the finance, and if you are not part of that, and if the finance collaboration is not well, how will you understand that where are you spending? How much you are spending? So particularly for the hotel industry, it is all about the budgeting, how much you have budgeted and that much you are supposed to spend. So me being the part of only spending, so I need to understand where it has been budgeted and who has budgeted that. So unless there is a close contact between finance and the procurement, it becomes very difficult sometimes to, the departments may ask for something, but yes, unless the finance has the budgeting and I know that budgeting, can't spend that. So without, it is hand to hand with finance, and particularly for this industry, and I suppose it is everywhere. At the end of the day, whatever you spend, your costings has to be approved by the finance. Your budgets has to be, because budgets are done by the finance, your costing and your expenses all are controlled by the finance. So there has to be a collaboration and it needs to be very healthy. So that, the user department doesn't feel anywhere that he's not being supported by the procurement, he's not supported by the finance. So the collaboration, the best collaboration between the procurement and the finance gives the user department, means the end user, a very comfortable zone of having his operations proper. Because his operations, all the operations, whether it is the manufacturing industry, whether it is the hotel industry, whether it is any of the industries, ultimately the procurement, the operations is all dependent upon the procurement.
Point taken.
Smooth is the procurement, the smooth is the operation. So it has to be very well collaborated that way.
So I'll start with Ashish. Ashish, do you want to add anything what Ashok said? And I will also want to extend this question to you. Like, while we know like collaboration is of paramount importance here. Like, I would like to particularly focus, do you want to add on and anything what Ashok said? And also what challenges you see in this journey of collaborating with finance? Yes, Ashok. Ashish, to you.
Thanks, Rini. Thanks, Ashok, for setting up the page for these challenges. Basically, if I see the first thing is coming from this side, the expand visibility, which is Ashok already touched in the past. But there the various challenges are also there. But every industry knows that every business have the more productive, more effective, more valuable, and efficiency will come when they work together. But unfortunately, there are a lot of challenges when they work together itself. If I touch out the few points related to the challenges, one is the, if I see the cultural challenges are there, cultural resistance are there, people don't want to do change, basically. If I touch on the another point, means there will be no common goal. One is the strategic organization's goal, one is the own individual goals are there. So organization are not linking properly own individual goals, procurement department goals, finance department goals to the organization's level goals.
So Ashish, just I'm reconfirming, you see the two great challenges for collaboration is one is no common goals and there is an inherent resistance to change, right? These are the things you are indicating. Fine. Yeah. So I will go on with Anu now. Anu, there's a lot talked about before our session on the technology 4.0. Okay. I would like your comments on how technology could be leveraged for the finance collaboration and how can procurement work together in the digitization process, which has become a now organization goal and slowly it will become a norm with most of the industry. And many industry already it's a norm. Yeah.
Yeah. So good afternoon, all, and I'm glad to share this with all of you. So see, I would say that both functions are a great enabler to ensure business continuity and also an inclusive, profitable growth. And both the department, they deal with huge volume. You be it purchase department, be it a procurement, and be it a finance department. And there are multiple stakeholders. On top of that, you have a market dynamics. You need to do a vendor management and other things. And both has the ability, frankly, to strengthen the process, because if you see, finance touches upon all across every single department in an organization. Likewise, procurement is also connected with all. Nobody can actually ignore procurement. Nobody can ignore finance. Both are strong enabler. Now, since they have a huge knowledge about what is happening all around the organization and what the market dynamics are, I think technology is something which actually they can bring in, because as I said, they are everywhere. I mean, they deal with all other aspects of the organization. But then before they actually bring in technology, and why I like bringing technology here is because the moment we talk about this technology, it will push you to think about standard work. It will push you to think about how do we become lean? How do we come up with a common goal and a common process? And that's where then you define your standard work, you define the boundary conditions, and then you come together on one ground and then define all those delegations, approvals, budget, etc. And that's where I think technology actually can help, because of the volume. If you go manual, you will end up into huge conflicts, and then it will not be a sustainable growth. So the only way actually to handle in today's world is adapt technology to the extent possible. We have multiple softwares which are available in the market. What is best suitable for us, use those for all collaboration, and remove the manual work wherever technology can come into the picture. So this is.
So if I summarize you, Anu, like you're saying, the move from a people dependency to system dependency by bringing technology.
Yes.
Therefore, that's how that can facilitate the collaboration, and therefore we have every touch point informed, or there is a transparency in the whole by bringing the technology.
Yep.
Fine. So the extension of this question is going to be Tarun. Tarun, there is always this one question which popped in our mind is, if we integrate finance completely into this cost saving journey, okay, can finance be equally accountable for the complete saving? And if so, what are the pros and cons? Yes, Tarun, your mic is mute.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be, glad to be on this panel. And I think the question that you put, Srinivas, is absolutely relevant. That how can finance be, an integral part of the cost saving journey? I speak from the point of view of what I experience as a member of the consumer goods company, and given the kind of inflation that we are, experiencing right now and what we anticipate for next year, it is becoming extremely imperative that the procurement and finance work together. And the way we do it is wherever we review the products, the costings, the overheads, we do it together. We challenge each other. So it was earlier, the way it used to be that it used to be a variance analysis. There is a variance versus the budget, and then you explain what the variance is. But I think now we have moved over, above and over that. Now what we do is we work together to ensure that we get the best value out of our money. We collaborate in a sense that we challenge each other on every spend area, whether it's a raw material or a packaging material or an overhead for that matter. I think finance, what it does is also it brings a fresh pair of eyes, because as procurement we have been doing certain things over a period of time, and it has become a way of life for us. So that's something which I have seen them bringing a lot of phenomenal value in terms of these discussions. And I think it has also helped us to sometimes go back to the drawing board and relook at everything that we are going to spend, which was not the case earlier. So I think the way it has happened, and actually it has been accelerated by the process of, or rather the phenomena of inflation, is that both the functions have come together in a critical way to ensure that we deliver on the top line and the bottom line of the company. And we work very, very closely, hand in hand, to ensure that there are no leaks in terms of any spend area, or for that matter any commodity or any area which is under the purview of procurement. So I think and it's only a matter of time that it even becomes further gelled, and we continue to deliver further on those lines.
Thank you, Tarun. So by just picking that, now we know that if it is of so much of value and impact to the organization, I would like to go to Ashok back, okay? And I would like to ask him, what things can be quickly looked at to derive value and savings by collaborating with finance?
Yes, it's a very valid question. Actually, this is a question which actually we need to have some discussion. See, the fact it remains is that when it comes to the procurement and the storing part, there are two things. When procurement is taken care by the procurement guy, and the storing and the inventories are taken care by the finance. So if you have a better coordination with the finance, and in terms of knowing that what is the slow moving, what is your fast moving, what are your high billing items, what are your low billing items, you can maintain your inventory like that. It is not saving, is not always that you negotiate better and get a better cost and you save something. Saving on the inventory, how much, if you have more fast moving things in your store, less of your burden items in your store, that also is a saving for the company. So if you have a better collaboration with the finance, those terms can be very well helped. Knowing how is your cash flow, accordingly you can maintain your purchases. Knowing your business, how better your business is, and accordingly your procurement goes hand in hand to that, that will save you in terms of your cash flow every time. And that's a big saving.
So
that's
if I summarize, if I understand right, correct me if I'm wrong, like for the benefit of the audience, you're saying don't look at only the direct savings in terms of negotiations. Look at all levers. Not only look at price lever, look at demand lever, look at process levers, correct?
Of course.
Even those areas. And if it's a manufacturing, look at inventory turns, right? Look at opportunity cost, what could we look at?
Look at your market scenario, how best you are selling and how best which product is selling, and accordingly you can regulate your procurements accordingly.
So don't look at one lever, look at multiple lever. That's the first easy way of approaching success in this area.
Yes.
Fantastic.
That is ultimately a good saving for the company.
Right. So so now when we do this is right, like one of the things which flashes with mind, that's the question I want to ask next, Ashish. is the key is the how well we manage the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, there are different varieties. Some are high powered, some are high interest. Some may not be high powered and high interest, but they will be feeding the bosses. So it's equally important to manage them also. So Ashish, I'm asking you one straight direct question is, how critical is stakeholder management and your insights on the stakeholder management? Yeah. What is the best way to do considering this audience?
Yeah, Srini, thanks. If I say the stakeholder management is a very critical role from the procurement side. When we see the business holder is a business user, we can say, has the best knowledge. He is the SME for that one. But before touching to these segmentations for the key stakeholder, I would like to touch the two critical points. When we talk about the stakeholder management, we have to consider that 20% is come with the facts and figure when we come with the stakeholders. So 20% fact figure will work, but the main area when we can take a decision and take a business stakeholder with us, that is the emotions or relations. So 80% relations will work. So fact will come into take the right decisions, why they are taking those decisions, and 80% of the emotions will come to the real reasons why people are making those decisions. So when we bifurcate the key stakeholders, means that the four quadrants are there when you take the influence and the interest of these persons. One is the key stakeholders are there. I can divide. The second one is the important stakeholder. Third one is the affected stakeholder. Fourth one, the other stakeholders. If you further drill down it, how we take the high interest and high influence, means we have to regularly engage with them, go them for that, put them into their vendor meet also. They will be part of each of their discussions, because anytime they can kill our project or our discussions. Second one is the high interest, low influence, means we'll go for the inform completely daily basis and monitor them very closely. Which is the alternate, another area is third quadrant is the low interest but high influence. So they will monitor regularly for anticipated need. We understand what they want. We have to feed them accordingly. Low interest, low influence means only the essential information we have to give them. So these are the things we have to work with them closely.
Ashish, you're very sophisticated. So let me get a little bit dirty here. Okay. When it comes to stakeholder management, first things I have seen is wherever there is people, there is politics here. Right? I am open to any panelist can jump down on this. How is this office politics handled, and what type of one, how do one address it, and any hints you guys can give for the rest of the team?
So
yes,
so the way I would so that's a good question, Srinivas, and you are right. Wherever it is people, it is politics, and in every phase of our work and career, we need to manage. The way I have worked or I have handled here in my work area is, the moment I see something going, so you need to define the boundary condition, right? What those boundary conditions are, and then map our stakeholders. And then wherever I think that the things are going here, I will do few lean related activities, which are like, Gamba, or so some of these terms may look heavy, but believe me, all these terms have helped me a lot whenever it comes to managing my activities, and at the same time you take care of the stakeholder. Value stream mapping, wherein how people are communicating, what informations are available with you, what is needed, what other people can give. So I go very objectively by using some of these lean techniques in my discussion, and then I move forward. So tough, I'm not saying that at times it does not become dirty. It does become dirty. But then some of these elements has helped me to move objectively.
So, Anu, let me summarize for you. This is what I understand from you. So, whatever the politics comes out of it with some unrequired scrutiny or various things, you're saying address it objectively and build your credibility. Over time, it dies out. It dies its own death. They will restrict politics with Anu because she means business. That's the way to address it.
Yeah, and some of these techniques, believe me, has very helpful. As I said, I mean, Gamba, Kaizen event,
Workplace investigations, and
RSMs, value stream mapping. So, as I said, emotions are there. We need to manage those emotions because emotions actually influence 80% of our decision making. If I to understand even with from Ashish, right? We can't ignore those things.
Fine. Yeah. Tarun, next question is for you. Okay. Should we restrict finance role to the currently whatever doing, or should we bring them bigger pictures like saving targets? Should they be involved in the area of creating new opportunities like cash benefits, and should they be involved in external benchmarking? Let me put one more thing. See, the macro and micro changes, the database, whatever changes in terms of the spend is finance. So they could act as a trigger. So I'm asking, does it make sense to extend their role further to these areas?
I think it absolutely does. And the reason I say that is because finance has a bird's eye view about how the organization is performing, what are the challenges that we have. So it does make a lot of sense to involve them into anything and everything which is to do with spend, or for that matter cash or working capital, or whatever it is. For example, I'll give you a few examples here. Let's talk about cash. So wherever there are certain credit terms that we have defined for our suppliers, and in case we are unable to meet those credit terms, then the maximum pushback that we get is from these finance, and we ensure that we actually get a supplier who's ready to accept our credit terms, right? Had it previously it was not the case. So you try to negotiate. If you can close in a certain term, it's great. If you can't, you still close it. But now that's a completely no, because there is a cash target that's sitting with the organization. That's a joint target between procurement and the finance. So I think that's a very critical area. I think somebody also talked about inventory. Again, one area where a huge amount of collaboration has happened and can happen. How much is the raw material, packaging material, finished inventory that you want to keep? What's the on a month-on-month basis, if you're making a P&L, then what is that which you can afford to keep, right? So can you do some small tactical changes to ensure that you get the right inventory by the month, and for that particular month, in case there is a challenge somewhere else? So all of that can only happen when you are working very, very closely. And I think the last example I want to give is in the area of cost savings. And we have been talking about stakeholder management. Now in an organization, there are people who are going to spend that money, right? Procurement is going to only facilitate, but ultimately it's going to be spent by somebody else. And that's where finance comes in, because you have budgets, you have challenges, you have inflation scenarios, and wherever you can't absolutely counter the stakeholder sometimes for the right reasons, right? The stakeholder might have a genuine demand, but end of the day, if you have the support and the backing of finance, I think it makes a lot of sense to get into discussion with stakeholders and manage their expectations in a way that they understand the bigger picture of how the organization is shaping up and what are the challenges that we are facing. So I think it makes absolutely sense, and I've seen that happening over the last few years, and it's only increasing that we collaborate with finance in almost every meeting in that sense, wherever we review our spends, our suppliers list, our working capital, and I think as we go along, there would be hardly any area which will be untouched in terms of that. Yeah.
So the one thing I'm getting clearly from you is, one is that we should have clear intent that this is where we are going, so involve them. Number two, it's very critical to show them what is in there for them and how critical is that, so that it could be jointly successful. That's what is coming out in your discussion.
Absolutely.
Right, but there's a lot of friends of mine in the forum, not only in India, across the world. They're quite in a comfort zone. This question is for them. So Manoj has been quiet for some time, so I'm going to drag in Manoj. See, this whole stakeholder management and getting aligned finance is a lot of work here. Okay. My question to you is, just junk this out. Let's not do it. Is zero-based budget, is that a solution to this? Because all budgets get slashed, you based on the experience you budget and then go.
Yeah.
Tell me, Manoj.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I would share one experience like we are in a service industry, and 5 years back in our company, procurement department was a separate. Suppose take example of procurement IT and procurement admin and procurement marketing and other functions. Then 5 years back, we realized that procurement should also come under finance. Then I was heading finance, and the procurement role was added to me. Then, if we before zero budget, I would say finance is preparing the budgets, and budgets are also prepared on the basis of some historical data and the vision of the spend and the how that particular market, which we are having a product list, will move on. Whether the prices of that market product will move on or will move down, depend on their demand and supply. That visibility also need to have while setting the budgets. And sometimes as a finance guy, we don't have that visibility which procurement guys can add the value. With that vision, we have collaborated and merged the procurement and finance. And in finance, I have recruited a computer engineer who has much knowledge of IT products under me. So that way we are running the show. So with that collaboration and merger, we have lot of benefits. I'll quote one example. Take example, a budget for some particular thing was 1 lakh rupees. It doesn't mean that if budget is 1 lakh, then procurement has to spend this 1 lakh. If the market has slowed down for that product, and those industries are crazy to sell the product even at a lower cost, then we should not look for the budget, and we should buy that product at a prevailing market price, which can be a lower than the budgets. And same a reciprocal example, I would say, if budgets are 1 lakh, maybe while our budgeting, the view was different and now the market has changed. So we have to spend more than budgets also. The COVID pandemic and lockdown period was the best example when we reviewed our budgets. We thought we should ask everybody why we need this thing. Why can't we start from the zero budget based concept? Take example of our marketing campaigns and all other advertisements. All physical advertisement and campaign have moved to the digitalization. The cost of physical campaigns and physical events or advertisements was a different on the basis of their parameter. And when during the pandemic we were doing the advertisement digitally, so whole budgeting process has gone away. So then in March 20, when lockdown was started, we started with the zero-based budgeting. We were asking people why we need this thing. Why can't we survive without this? Then as a business function, also lot of things or purchases has been dropped by user functions. They also think differently, because sometimes we have to say no, then the thinking process lever to at a very high level. When we say that we need to reduce the cost, then the thinking process is a different.
Got it, Manoj. I got it. But one caveat, or I would like to describe to the audience is, you are from the service industry. Therefore, it is organized like most of the service industry. What we have seen in the recent survey is 95% plus organization, the procurement function reports to the CFO's office. But I'm not sure if somebody from, I think Ashok may be the right person to answer this. Can, in a manufacturing industry, okay, can the procurement function report to the CFO and operate and pick up zero-based budgeting as Manoj described? Is it a feasible solution in a manufacturing?
No, when see, pandemic has once off gone on, but it is not the scenario the business works. When you have a good business works, you need to have the budget. Zero budgets cannot always be, pandemics will never come again. But the budgeting has to be there. Unless
So
without
it's
budgeting,
very, got it.
yeah,
I got it. So it is very industry specific. So we need to
it
look
is
at
very
like,
industry specific, and unless, see, there has to be limitations given to the operating departments that they can have these things. See, the inflow based on their budgets, expense budget is given, they make the revenues. They plan their revenues accordingly. So budgeting is a must thing, which anyhow has been there since days and will remain there.
fine,
So
Ashok.
I just want to add, zero budgeting means that generally while doing the budgets, we compare the last year figures, last to last year, how the trend is evolving in the last 3 years or 5 years of the spend mode, and what is our vision for the upcoming years. So with that data, we have to put a zero budgeting column also. So I don't want to say that for every item it should be a zero-based budgeting, but at
Yes.
least a question should go to the user department why, and why can't we reduce it?
No, see,
Manoj, yes, Manoj, I just
see, the fact remains that when you compare
because
between-
ultimately we have to run the show of the business also. Without purchase, nobody can sell.
yes. No, Manoj,
No,
one
no,
of the
no,
things which
there is
No,
a reason. There is a particular reason why we compare previous years with the current situation. Reason being that the input cost of your everything has gone up.
Yeah.
And your the margin is shrinking day by day. So you need to have a
So let's move forward. Move forward. So one of the big pros I see of the proposal of zero-based budgeting is a lot of lobbying on the budgets will stop. That's a big area it will stop. But I think still largely people are paranoid in terms of zero budget, and I'm thankful, Manoj, you brought this up, that somebody is doing at least in a selective way, and that's an area which could be explored.
Yes.
So now, since we have explored alternatives, now let's look at the start now. So we have seen now what is finance collaboration, and we have seen the alternative if you want to go the zero budget way. Now let us look at where we start. I'll go with Ashish. Ashish, should the need and spend analysis be the start point and for the collaboration with finance, and what's your insights on that?
Definitely. When you go for the need versus spend analysis, that is a much more requirement. But before, as a sourcing guy, before going to the business requirement, we have to understand what are their definition of the scopes, what they wanted. Means here I will talk about the 7 Ws. Before doing any scoping point of view, start any sourcings. Means who. First one is who, means who is required this win, who is requesting this requirement come from the which department. Second is what, which material they want. Third one is which means how many quantity they want. Fourth one is the which characteristics, means specifications, quality, those should be prefixed properly. For fifth one is the when they want. At the point of deliveries, they need after 1 month, they need after 2 months, they need after 6 months. 6th one is the where they want, which locations. Either they want their factory locations, they want their another godowns locations, or they want any their hubs or other locations. 7th one is the most touchable point, at what cost, what are the budget limits. The reason being the budget as a sourcing guy. When we talk about the zero budgeting or something, we have to fix out what are our target points are there. With the collaboration with the finance teams, we have to fix the baseline also. When we talk about the market fluctuations are there, maybe budget is low, high, we fix up the baseline, then budget is fixed with the mutual concern things. Then we have to map as a sourcing guy, what are my P&L saving, and those P&L saving will come to the purchase team members, not gone to the finance one. And as well as any mitigations saving will come, that will also give to the purchase department. Usually finance will not give to the purchase any credit. any EBIT saving, they will bring it out. Means payment terms 15 to they bring out the 30 days, and they do the renegotiation in the contract and remove some scope of work where I will touch again. So when we talk about the need versus spend, I will also touch about the need versus want. When the user will come and ask me, I need one thing, means they ask Rolex, but is their work can be done with the Titan? Because they need time. So need versus want analysis is also important for us before going through this thing.
So now we have understood and we started navigating. We understood various dimensions of finance collaboration and how that could impact our savings and the overall well-being of the organization. And we started navigating. And the first step to navigate is get into deep dive in a need and spend analysis. And that will give you insights where you can start your journey. And in that process, so one of the key aspects is during this journey is also, which we are not talked about, is communication. Anu, I would like to ask this question to you. While we have seen the three types of communication, push, pull, interactive, as all of them well known, how close communication between departments can help a company in your view, and particularly in terms of risk management? And that is what I would like to know. And when I say risk management, it's a huge topic. Let me bring it specific, proactively from a vendor management part of it, or even its market intelligence and its impact. Let me know.
Yeah, Srinivas. So see, I know risk management is a very big topic, but then if two things I were to say, which is very critical on a risk management side is when finance thinks about, or when finance is looking into procurement, or say procurement is getting into finance, is one is governance and the second one is managing the leakages, because that's where the entire things are based upon. And if I were to see 5 procurement function that is there, one is like purchase planning, vendor management that you were saying, then the value analysis, which is very important when you are going for a purchase planning or a vendor management or a price negotiation or an inventory, or say inventory management. Now all of these, if you see all of these functions, purchase and finance, they both cannot work silo. They have to work together to ensure that there are no leakages. At the same time, the governance is there without compromising on safety, and then maintaining the same quality. And finance, while can add value by providing right data and accurate information to the proposal or to the procurement team, at that same time, procurement can help finance by giving, say, market intelligence and other data. Recent example is inflation, right? In my organization, this entire inflationary trend that we saw, or that we have been seeing during this pandemic, it has impacted significantly to us. The only reason we could come out with some policy which should be there in our contract clauses are because of the collaboration that we could see between finance and procurement. We got the data point, we quantified, what kind of risk could it bring to in our profitability or in our financials. Then we came out with the language, we incorporated into this contract, we spoke with all the vendors and also with the customers. Now, those things can be taken care of only when there is a close communication and collaboration at every level of finance and procurement. So that's what I would say.
So if I understand you right, like this is such a critical piece of communication. It's going to bring a lot of communication, lot of transparency. Therefore, the synergies can build in, right? And
Yes.
also it could bring out during the discussion the risk associated with the vendors, and that's what typically happens. As we're discussing with something with finance, we find out, oh, this is what is pointed out. We could work. Got it.
Yeah.
So that's a good insight, Sanu. So as we were navigating, now we were into communication. One thing which was flashed my mind is I would like to go with Ashok. Okay. See, while we have this approval notes, we make a business case and we get it approved. Now we have seen the need and spend analysis, and out of which we found an opportunity, and then we signed the business case. A lot of organization, because basis the research data I'm just sharing with you, After the approval notes or the business case is signed, I don't think so people track effectively to implementation. There is very few successful organizations are tracking the business cases to its T and ensuring that people are accountable for the same. So I have two questions to you, Ashok. First is, will the status quo need to change? Should we track as a key result area the business cases what is signed? Okay. And while tracking so, will this support collaboration? Because you will interact with various touch points and verification why this happened, why this not happened. Yes, Ashok, it's towards you.
Yeah, when it comes to the hotel industry, as I see, there is a process which is called a pre and post P&L. Whenever we do any such sort of some food festivals in the hotels, whenever we do some Christmas like New Year events, Christmas, yeah, may it be some Diwali function, some sort of some events, we do a pre and post P&L. It is always done. So initially we think of whatever will be the enhanced business out of this and that. They try to manipulate, but then the post P&L is always done to see whether it was an effective or no, whether we were able to make some money out of this or not. But when it comes to you're right, when it comes to the engineering part of the machinery part of it, initially when you go to buy a chiller for the hotel, the company will say, we give you, if you replace this chiller with this company, this will give you energy saving of this person, you will make a good calculation sheet. Okay, by replacing this 10-year-old chiller and putting new chiller, in 5 years, we will get the return of ROI on this. But I have hardly seen actually in my 20 years of career that those things are not being actually done. And nobody tracks them actually, if I be honest with you. Nobody actually tracks them. That big things. And that is where actually your huge money goes. And even if the companies, today's whenever new product comes in the market, whenever new comes, TV comes, air conditioning units come, they come up with okay, this is a 5-star rated, your energy saving will be this, your carbon zero print will be this. Actually, this is all on papers and maybe they get that, but actually it has not happened. And I don't think much of the people are tracking that.
So from the value perspective to the audience, the
Yes.
quick wins are the low hanging fruit right now. When you go back to your drawing room is, look at all the business case signed and is it really as per the business case? That's an opportunity.
Yes.
When we do that, you will also get into the service agreements. Do they have SLAs? And
Yeah.
is the SLAs tracked?
Yes. It is.
Thank you, Ashok.
Thank you.
So now this is for Manoj, but other panelists can also add. Okay. I was inquisitive to know because a lot of data suggested wherever there is a CEO involved in a journey like this, it seems to be more effective and well taken care. My question to Manoj is a CEO involvement required in such an initiative? Or it's fine with the CFO, or it cannot be generalized, it's very industry specific. Yes, Manoj.
Yeah, I would like to add that at the time of budget finalization in the same month of Feb or March, depend on the company to company, the CEO involvement is required. But on a month-on-month basis, CEO involvement is not there, and companies like us have a reforecasting concept also. On a half-yearly basis, we reforecast our budgets, whether it is a top line and other spends, and finally on the bottom line. So at the time of reforecast also, CEO involvement is required, because after spending 6 months in a year, something comes new, that that this is in our need of time, and we have to increase our budgets, and how we should pull out the money from the existing pool of budgets, because everybody is fully overloaded budgets in the H2. So H1 is generally
so your recommendation is don't want to talk to the big boss every month. Leave him alone for
yeah,
once a year.
6 months is enough. Every 6 months is enough.
Fine.
Because
Fine.
it is a job of CFO. And I would add to your previous question also on a tracking. So in our company, the tracking of the all commitments or all cost benefit analysis does not come under procurement. That is gone to the FP&A department, those who are planning and analyzing. So they are the individual and independent uh, evaluator that whatever has been negotiated by procurement and has been committed by the business functions. So ongoing basis, whether it has been a actually used case of profitability or not. So for every department, it should be a learning for procurement also and for business function also, how they project and what is the actual outcome of that spend or the whatever it is, whether an analytical tool or any IT system integration or depend on the industry to
So
industry.
any other panelists have any different opinion on the involvement of CEO?
So,
No, I think, yeah, please.
Yeah, please go.
and I'll quickly add that, maybe we don't need a CEO to get involved on a day-to-day activities, but then there are metrics and the KPIs, right? And those, we need to have some KPIs which will help us to know the health of this entire, say, procurement function or the outcome of, those things. And then through MIS, we publish those KPIs, and that itself should be a good enough, for a CEO to see how does that work, and it will give a good sense even to the procurement also in terms of how and what they are doing is impacting which parameter or the KPI that CEO is looking at.
So fine, Anna. So I understood two things. One is that don't supervise people, we can supervise the results by way of metrics and measures. And without involving the CEO itself, by sharing these metrics, we can get him involved.
There are ways and means. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fine. Yes, Ashok, you are saying something.
Yeah, see, actually, when initially at the initial stage, when you are fixing for the budget for the year, definitely the presence is a must. But after that, you keep on receiving the MIS for the month, MIS of the fortnight, you keep track on this. And I don't think that every time their involvement is, that will lose that, that impact what they have on the management. So then every time it is not good, but yes, of course, when we decide on something and then you are getting the reports, and if something is going adverse on that, then of course your intervention is always this thing. But otherwise, if it is going as per what has been decided, what has been approved, and what is in a positive direction, then I don't think so. Every time their involvement is
fine. So we will conclude this question there. So Anu, since I've become inquisitive, you are talking about how we can make this as a strategy or without even involving the CEO, right? My question to you is just triggered me in my mind, like how the finance and procurement can play a role together to build or shaping the strategy. Can they play a role during this process of collaboration for success?
So frankly, a very big role. If I were to look into the strategy, right, and I will not touch upon this strategy like go to market and some of these, of course, all those are interlinked. But say if a company is, looking at their 5 years growth or 10 years growth, or say, let's say even 5 years growth, two elements which will define their profitability, right? Revenue and cost. Now, the moment it is a cost, can anybody, get in right set of data or even a right set of projection without involving procurement? I don't think, right? And that's where I think that a procurement function is a very big contribution. I would say they have a very big contribution while defining the strategy or a roadmap for the organization, because they have a lot of data information available. And now in today's world, now the vendors are not vendors, they are partners. We can't live without them because they help us, making us competitive in the market. So that's where I think, procurement function plays a very big role. And that's where finance should leverage on, and we all actually leverage more and more to the procurement, and we look into them whenever we are, say, drawing a strategy in a whiteboard.
Thanks, Anu. Thank you so much. So, Tarun, this is for you. Okay. While we are framing the strategy and deploying, obviously there is going to be glitches and bottlenecks, right? So tell me, like, what type of role finance can play in terms of removing these bottlenecks and along partnering with procurement. Your insights on this, yeah.
Sure. Before I do that, if you allow me, I'll just try to address that point around the supply chain, or sorry, the procurement reporting into finance. Yeah. So I have seen over my last 2 decades journey that actually the procurement function has moved out of finance and into supply chain. And I think there are some good reasons for doing that. One of the reasons is the customer service, because now the ability of an organization is also measured by not just at what price are you delivering a material or a service, but also the kind of customer service, the fill levels, or for that matter, the customer service that that an organization has to manage. And with increasingly with the modern trade chains, etc., it's becoming increasingly difficult to manage that. So I think that's the reason why it has moved out from finance into supply chain. And I think it's not so a recent phenomena. I have seen that happening about a decade and a half back, and now I see most of the organizations procurement is part of supply chain rather than of finance. So to that, I just wanted to put my 2 bits forward. Now to the question that how do we remove the bottlenecks? I think finance has a major role to play. Let's talk about capital. If there is a capital that needs to be invested, which would result in some kind of a cost savings. Typically the organization's objectives were that we want to reduce the capital depending upon, how they are in terms of the ability. But now, in certain cases where there is a long-term benefit coming out of that capital, now it is being, pushed by finance to say that let's invest into it, because we are seeing that coming in a certain period of time, depending upon IRR or the, NPV, or whichever parameters that one looks into. That's one. And number 2, even in cost savings project, for that matter, there are functions which would possibly try to stall some of the cost saving project, because they might have to put in extra efforts to do that. And that's where again finance has a big role to play, because if it's overall meeting the strategy of the company, delivering benefits to the company, then that's a bottleneck that finance can actually remove by aligning the people in this function or in the organization to say that we should do it because this is the right thing to do. Now it might involve more resources, it might need somebody to stretch forward a little more, but that's something which is there. So I think these 2 or 3 things I have seen in the past which have actually helped us typically to deliver on some of the cost savings projects. And I guess, like I've always been saying, this is only going to increase, because the difficulty in terms of managing the spends is increasing many folds with the kind of inflation that we are seeing. Back to you.
Fine. Thanks, Tarun. Thanks, Tarun. That I would like to clarify my position, and especially the finance reporting part. What we have jointly agreed, or we had conveyed, is like, see, while in a manufacturing setup, like, see, how was procurement seen from a vision perspective? Are there a control function, or an execution function, or there an enabler function? Different industry tried to adopt them differently. When we talked about earlier with Manoj, right? They are a service industry. Their procurement is mostly seen as a control function. So reporting to finance makes a lot of sense. But in your industry, if it is an enabler function, because it is directly involved with the product purchase and involved with the product, so there it may not be material for the function to report to the CFO. So point taken. That's well understood. I just thought to bring clarity to the audience. Fine. So that's it from us. So what I would like to summarize is I would like to now invite any questions from the audience before we summarize.
Thank you so much. What a fabulous discussion that was, Mr. Srinivas. There aren't any audience questions right now, but we'd really, like a closing thought. Okay, now, one thing, Mr. Srinivas, with all your experience and expertise, we definitely like, one statement from you towards the end of the session, since we have to go into a coffee and networking break in interest of time. We've just got a minute to that. So we just love, one statement from your end as to the closing of this entire panel. What is that one thing you'd like the audience to take away?
Only one thing, if you want to take to me, is two statements, let me make it. The world is moving away from independence to interdependence. What I mean is I need you, you need me. So the people who are able to collaborate better are going to succeed. Okay. So what I'm saying is only one statement. First, integrate, then differentiate. That is the statement I would like to say, as that's my learning, what I learned from today's panel discussion.
Very well put, and I think that's a lovely closing thought we'd love to take away with just a minute, rather 4 or 5 Indian Standard Time as per our clock. We'd really like to humbly thank our panelists. Thank you for your valuable time and sticking to the schedule and being so patient and being so informative. Thank you once again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we break in for a short coffee and networking break. Why don't you grab your hot cup of tea, coffee, and join us back at 4:15 with yet another exciting panel discussion on the other side. So we break in for 10 minutes. Let's explore the platform features. Let's get to know one another better.